What's going on, Warriors? So today I'm doing a supplement review on apple cider vinegar. So with so much hype around apple cider vinegar, is it just quackery or does this stuff actually work? When it comes to things like fat burning and weight loss and all the other health benefits that are associated with apple cider vinegar. So I've been on apple cider vinegar myself for 60 days, and here's what I've noticed. We're also gonna dive into the studies and the research because there's no sense in us playing broken telephone. We wanna make sure that there's some science behind what we're saying. So we're gonna dive into the research. You guys are gonna know everything you need to know about apple cider vinegar and how it can either help you or not help you get to the results that you want to get to. My cat is trying to steal my other cat's food, so just give me 1 second, but I'll see you guys in this video. Hey, Tetley, you ate already, bro. I almost forgot. If it's your first time on the channel, I'm a type 1 diabetic, natural bodybuilder. I give health and wellness tips, and I also do vlog, lifestyle videos, and dive deep on the research in terms of videos like what you're gonna see here today. So if any of that sounds good, make sure you guys follow the journey, join the family, smash that subscribe button. You guys know what to do. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna see you guys in this one. Hey, usually I throw stuff up in the air, but this is made of glass, so we're not gonna do that this time. I'll see you guys. So apple cider vinegar, what is it? Apple cider vinegar is a common liquid that's been used to help with weight loss and fat burning specifically, but we're gonna dive into some more stuff to see if it actually is worth its salt or its acid, since it's pretty much what it is. Apple cider vinegar is made by crushing apples, adding yeast to it in a two-step fermentation process where the yeast gets added to these crushed apples. This starts to convert, turns into an alcohol, and then bacteria is added to that alcohol to then get what's known as acetic acid. And acetic acid is the active compound in apple cider vinegar that has been shown to have a lot of these positive health benefits like burning fat, losing weight, or flying spaceships. I added in the spaceship part. You're gonna need some lessons for that. We're also gonna look at whether it helps out with blood sugar control. But what do the studies show us? And what did I notice when I took it for 60 days? Now, there's one study that was done, and this study had 11 subjects. It was a randomized crossover study. So it compared two different groups, and they would give one group the apple cider vinegar. The other group didn't have the apple cider vinegar, and they were all type 2 diabetics, and they wanted to see what happened to blood sugar levels if they gave them apple cider vinegar before their meals. And what the study showed, having the apple cider vinegar before their meals helped to reduce what's called the postprandial blood sugar spike, or how high the blood sugar level goes after you eat. And usually you want to keep that as controlled as possible, so you don't want those huge spikes that are happening. So type 1s, for example, can get ahead of that with more pre-bolusing. Type 2 diabetics can manage this more with diet, mixed meals, things like, as in this study, apple cider vinegar. According to the study, this helped to improve the glucose disposal into the cells, helped to reduce the amount of insulin that was also needed as well. And there's another study done with type 2 diabetics with gastroparesis. So gastroparesis is when muscles in the stomach don't move the way that they should because high blood sugars can interfere with the nerves that are necessary to help the stomach and gut motility to move food through the stomach. And gastroparesis means that this process is not working as efficiently as it should. This can slow down what's called gastric emptying. Now, typically in type 1 diabetics, you see a higher or a faster rate of gastric emptying because type 1 diabetics don't produce a hormone called amylin. And amylin is responsible for helping satiety, so feeling full after meals, and also slowing down gastric emptying so it doesn't happen as fast. And if you slow down gastric emptying, you can also help to control those postprandial glucose spikes we were talking about. Now, the issue though is gastroparesis, of course, drastically slows down this process as a result of having the nerves not working the way that they should to release the food into the system. What they did was they gave a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before mixed meals with these type 1 diabetics and compared this as well to other type 1 diabetics who were not having the apple cider vinegar. And what they found was that in type 1 diabetics, it slowed gastric emptying down some more in type 1 diabetics with gastroparesis. Now, if you already have gastroparesis, that means that you don't want to supplement with something like an apple cider vinegar because it's going to further slow this process down more, and you already have delayed emptying of your system. Now, this also compounds if you're somebody that's on Ozempic, the wonder drug. If you're on Ozempic, the wonder drug, then you want to make sure that you might not want apple cider vinegar either. And I call it the wonder drug because it does a great job as well at a shit ton of side effects that are not being talked about. So we'll save that for another video though. But I digress. But what we want to focus on as well is we want to make sure that, hey, if you're someone with gastroparesis, you maybe don't want apple cider vinegar because it's going to further slow down a process that's already being slowed down for you. But in a type 1 diabetic that doesn't necessarily have those issues, that's having fast postprandial glucose spikes, then this could actually help to slow some of that gastric emptying down, almost acting like amylin, the hormone that your pancreas from your beta cells no longer produces. And when it comes to weight loss, there was a randomized control trial that was done with Lebanese students, and it was 120 Lebanese students where they tested different levels of apple cider vinegar, which was 5 milliliters, 10 milliliters, and 15 milliliters before eating their meals. And they also had a placebo group, so a group that did not get the intervention of the apple cider vinegar. And so they wanted to test what happens with weight loss with the students that were having the apple cider vinegar that were overweight versus the students that weren't. And what they found is around the 8 to 12 week mark that there was an increase in weight loss based on the amount of apple cider vinegar that was given up to the 15 milliliter mark. And this weight loss became more prominent the longer somebody was on it. So being on it for 8 to 12 weeks helped them to really get results in the realm of 4 to 6 kilograms of weight that was lost over the 12-week time frame, specifically in the group that had 15 milliliters of apple cider vinegar or 1 tablespoon versus the placebo group saw 0 weight loss. So we're talking 4 to 6 kilograms, about 13 to 14 pounds of weight that was lost on the groups that had the 15 milliliters of apple cider vinegar. Even the groups that had 5 and 10 milliliters of apple cider vinegar showed a little bit less. So as the increase in apple cider vinegar increased, the weight loss also increased. And when we group all this weight loss together in the fat metabolism, there's a systematic review and a meta-analysis that was done. So it took 9 different studies together and wanted to come to a more defined conclusion about, does it help with fat metabolism? What's really going on? And what they found was that participants that were taking at least 15 milliliters of apple cider vinegar continuously over time for 8 weeks noticed an increase or a significant drop in cholesterol levels and also triglycerides or fat levels as well. That's also important to the bigger picture too, because a lot of times we can tend to do things and we're not consistent. Hey guys, I'm one of them. I'm not here telling you guys what to do, but there's certain things that I'm not as consistent with that maybe I could be more consistent with. And when it comes to fitness, health, nutrition, we got to be as consistent as we can be, right? To help to take us to the next level. So consistency in this meta-analysis showed us people that were on this for 8 weeks or more saw more results with what they were doing. And what's important for us to understand is some of these studies that we've mentioned as well, some of them could have done a little bit better when it came to coming to certain conclusions. For example, there were some studies that did show a result of weight loss that was consistent with the apple cider vinegar, but there were some measures where they had them go home and gave them a guide on what to eat, but who knows if what they were reporting was exactly what these participants were actually eating. It could be that some of these participants maybe were just naturally eating in a calorie deficit, the ones that lost weight, and that's what led to more weight loss, whereas the ones that weren't didn't lead to any weight loss because they weren't eating in a calorie deficit. Maybe having the apple cider vinegar in some of the studies where they knew they had the cider changed their behavioral patterns, and so they were more likely to adopt more healthy habits that led to more weight loss. So there were some studies that didn't isolate those variables as well as they could have to make that conclusion. But in those studies still, those that were on the apple cider vinegar significantly lost more weight regardless. So even if it was the case that apple cider vinegar does something to the mind from a behavioral perspective or naturally pushes someone to eat less calories, it's helping in one fashion or another. What's also important to understand is how this actually happens. And so there is studies that show us as well that apple cider vinegar can help to inhibit enzymes in the gut, in the small intestine, like in the A-glucosidase enzyme. And this enzyme breaks down complex carbohydrates into glucose. Now, when you can inhibit this slightly with things like apple cider vinegar or the active compound of acetic acid, you could slow down how fast these complex carbohydrates are getting broken down into glucose and released into the system, better controlling that process and better controlling those post-meal blood sugar spikes. Also, it can help to trigger more GLP-1. And so you're triggering GLP-1, the acetic acid from the apple cider vinegar triggering more GLP-1 in your system. It can also help with fullness. It can help with suppressing glucagon release after a meal. And me, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and so type 1 diabetics can have dysregulated glucagon. So suppressing that can also help to control blood sugar levels, especially after meals. Probably one of the reasons why we see more control. Also, if we're better able to dispose glucose into our body cells, it means we technically need less insulin overall. And what we know is that when you can control and make insulin more efficient, that can help you with more fat burning because you're not taking in more than your body needs. Insulin is important for muscle growth, of course, but when we take in more than we need, then it can lead to more fat storage. So if this can help us to regulate how much insulin we need, whether through injection or naturally through someone's body, it can potentially help with more weight loss as well. So it may be these indirect effects that apple cider vinegar can have on our fullness, therefore eating less calories overall. But either way, there's an interaction that is happening that is helping for people that are consistent on apple cider vinegar to get results and see positive changes happen. Again, look at the max output of positivity that could happen with something like apple cider vinegar. Weight loss, fat burning, better blood sugar control, less insulin, lower cholesterol, versus the worst, maybe a little bit of a tummy ache. So is it worth it for 20 bucks? You decide. One of the things that really stood out to me though, that I haven't talked about yet, is just mental clarity. When I would take this in the morning with a glass of water, I actually felt like I had more mental clarity. Before I did the research, I wanted to feel what did I notice in these 60 days of taking it. The most thing I noticed early on in the morning is especially more clarity when I would have this. Is there anything in acetic acid that could show us that we could potentially have more mental clarity? When I dove into the research behind maybe why I might be feeling that way is that there was studies done that looked at acetic acid. What they found was that acetic acid increased how well the neurons were communicating with each other, or increased what's called excitability in these mice, meaning that these pathways in these neurons, and neurons or nerve cells are like fundamental units to just help to send signals and receive messages in the body, right? And so they found that there was excitability with these neurons as it related to acetic acid in these mice. Even though it's hard to transfer these results to humans, I understand. But one thing that I noticed myself is just more alertness. Very interesting there in terms of what I noticed and what I found in the studies. Here's another interesting study that we're finding right now. Daily vinegar ingestion improves depression scores and alters the metabolism in healthy adults, a randomized control trial. So very interesting. If we think about how I felt when I talked about my mental alertness and feeling pretty good after taking ACV, and if we think about things like even like depression on this and how it improves depression scores after taking daily vinegar ingestion, the active ingredient being acetic acid, serotonin is a neurotransmitter, is basically a message that gets sent that helps our body to feel good. And when we think about depression, usually you're lower in serotonin levels. One of the reasons why they might suggest an SSRI, or a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, to hold serotonin in the brain for longer. So now you're starting to see, okay, interesting. What's the connection between neurons, the neuron excitability we just talked about? And so in our example of within this study of lower depression levels for people that were on daily vinegar ingestion, we have to also consider that we look at neurons as the senders and receivers of the message that's being sent, and that message in this case is serotonin. So very interesting stuff. And I haven't taken mine today yet, so we're just gonna go ahead and do this. You wanna take 1 tablespoon, just like that, put it in some water, because if you're just doing straight shots, it could burn the inside of your throat, teeth as well. It might even cause just some gastrointestinal issues. So you wanna mix it in with water. Chug it down, bottoms up, and you're good to go. Have it in the morning fasted, 2 minutes before a meal. All you need is 1 tablespoon based on the studies to get everything rolling, and you guys will be good to go. Drop some comments. Let me know if you guys have had apple cider vinegar before, if you have any other questions about apple cider vinegar, and When it comes to a rating for me, I'm gonna give apple cider vinegar a solid 7.5 out of 10 because the studies really back and support its ability to help you to get to the next level with weight loss, fat burning, better blood sugar control. But what's also important to note though is that it's not just about taking apple cider vinegar to get results. You also wanna make sure that your nutrition is where it needs to be. And if your nutrition is where it needs to be, you're eating what you should be eating, cleaner foods. You're also focused on resistance training to develop muscle, cardio as well. You have all these other principles shored up. Then adding a supplement like apple cider vinegar in to help with the bigger picture can help us to take things to the next level. But just relying on a magical supplement is never the way to go. You wanna make sure you have the complete picture down pat, all right? So with that being said, bottoms up, guys. Ooh, it's got a real sour taste to it. It is what it is. I'll see you guys in the next episode, Warriors. I'm out.